Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Inside Groove. I am Nick Mumley, your host. He is Dustin Tanner. And we got a lot to talk about today, Dustin.
We got a lot to
There's
talk about.
A lot going on. Daniel Hemrick is going back to the number 8 car, going to the number 8 car. The 31 car is no longer around. He's taking over. There's a lot of, I've heard a little bit of outcry over him taking Dale Jr.'s old number. Not as much as Austin Dillon taking Dale Sr.'s old number, but we'll talk about that.
Nation's triggered.
Yeah, I don't think it's a very big deal, but your NASCAR lifers are going to get a little bit angry over that, I suppose. Starcom Racing, they announced today that they're coming back for 2019. They purchased a charter.
Yeah.
And so Landon Castle coming back with them full time. We'll talk about Steve Phelps' comments on the direction of NASCAR and how he plans to fix the sponsorship model, which we all know is broken. And the NASCAR hot stove has kind of cooled down just a little bit. It's still simmering just a little bit. It's still a hot surface still a hot surface unit right now, but it's starting to cool down. It's not how it was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So we might even have some time to get back to some driver report cards, which we promised, but we just haven't had time for because there's been so much news.
Yeah, no, there's been tons of news.
But before we start, we got to do our diecast of the week. And Dustin, let's see your diecast of the week.
I failed diecast of the week this week because I was thinking about ordering a pizza and I forgot to grab a diecast. I got in my car. I left my apartment. Down the road, I'm like, don't have a diecast this week, so we'll be back in 2 weeks with one.
Yes. Dustin's diecast of the week is a pizza from Mimos.
That's what we're hoping here.
As for me, I brought Tony Stewart's Last Ride from his 2016 season. So it's the race version, so it's got all the
nicks and
all the scrapes and all that.
It was pretty cool that he ran that scheme and actually ran that scheme.
It was a cool
wonder
scheme.
What they'll do when Jimmy Johnson has a Last Ride.
Yeah, that's
because
I love all the Last Ride cars. Dale Jr.
Well, Dale Jr. didn't really do anything special for us. He just went back to his DEI paint scheme.
Yeah.
I like that one because it's got all the photos of Tony on it. And
it's got all the signatures on the side from the Stewart Haas Racing employees. And it's got the pictures on the front and all that. So, yeah,
nice stuff.
One of my as a lifelong Tony Stewart fan growing up, that's a diecast that probably means most to me in my collection. So, anyway, let's get into the show here. Daniel Hemrick, top story. He's going to the 8. RCR dumping the 31. The thing that most intrigued me about this story, though, was that the 8 team's bringing on a ton of new.
Well, I looked at that, and it wasn't really a ton per se, but they did pick up Cessna, or whatever that's called, Cessna. And then they picked up, they really didn't pick up anything else. It was they
got a red and black scheme there.
I'm pulling it up now because I want to make sure exactly what I have. So they get Bass Pro Shops.
Yeah. Which was already with Newman for like 2 races last year.
Already with Newman for 2 races, already with Austin Dillon, already part of the Xfinity program. So that's not new. Liberty National is part of Newman's program this year. Red Cap Workwear, that's a new sponsor that we haven't seen. Yeah. That's a nice looking car. And then on top of that, the Caterpillar scheme is back for another year. And they have said that they are almost done. It's almost close to sold out for the 19 season, which is really interesting to me because you look at teams struggling to fill the void for sponsorship, but this rookie is going to be able to come in and just fill it all out. And he's not buying any of this sponsorship. It's not like one of those things where he's paying to play in this case.
Right. And so my question is, seeing all this, new stuff coming in, seeing that they're almost fully sold out for the year, does Hemrick, are you looking for him to be competitive next year? Is he a chase driver, or is he, putting up the same stuff that Newman did?
I think it might be Alex Bowman chase driver. I think he might make the playoffs on that fringe. I don't know. Hemrick's a wheelman. He almost won the Xfinity Championship without winning a race, and that speaks to how consistent the dude is.
We know is consistency, and consistency is what counts the most in the regular season. Other than getting that win to absolutely lock you in, if you're consistent, that's going to get you the points. It's going to get you into the playoffs, and that's going to move you on in the playoffs.
I think consistency translates better to the big leagues, right? Like in baseball, it's like, do you want the guy who hit 30 home runs in the minor league, or do you want the guy who hit for 320 average, right?
Right.
The guy who hits for the higher average is going to pan out better most of the time when you get to the big leagues, because, you look at those guys who win a couple of races here and there, can they pull that off when there's 40 other drivers in the field that are just as good as you are? And Daniel Hemric's one of those guys who I think he'll be able to have some speed this year. And the RCR cars were getting faster at the end of the year. You looked at all their cars with their alliances. Austin Dillon almost had a chance to make it deeper into the playoffs. Newman was even getting some good runs, even though he checked out. The affiliate cars were doing better. Right. So I would look for Daniel Hemric. He'll probably have a better season than Dillon, I would guess. But I think he'll do well. I think he's got a chance to sneak in there.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how he does with this, because, I don't think that we've seen a guy come up, not on the top of my head, that has come up, that has shown as much consistency as Hemric has in the lower levels. You look at William Byron in the lower levels. He was a boomer bust driver all of his career. He, had a rough rookie season for Hendrick Motorsports.
He did have a rough rookie season.
Chris Buescher, another guy who, he was pretty consistent, but, had a lot of bad days as well in the Xfinity Series. And he's got the Cup win, but, not as much there. Daniel Suarez, another boomer bust guy in the Xfinity Series.
I think when you look at a guy like Daniel Hemric and you look at RCR, it's not about winning every race. It's about putting yourself in a position to get a couple of those wins. This is what Austin Dillon is really sneaky good at. He did it in the Daytona 500. He did it in the Coke 600. He's a guy who will just keep you in contention, and with a couple of breaks can put a car in victory lane. So, and I want to touch on the moving back to the 8. I love that. Hemric is from Kannapolis himself. Like he's, Dale Jr. had mentioned that he would be cool with it. I love moving back to the 8. It's nice to see the 8 car back in NASCAR.
Yeah, it is. And, I think that personally the whole 8 thing doesn't really do a whole lot for me, simply because the number style is not anything similar to what Dale Jr.'s was. So I don't really relate this to Dale Jr. at all, because it's the same, but it's not at the same time. So I think Daniel Hemric has an opportunity to make this his own kind of thing, where if he like Austin Dillon drives the 3 with the same number style and the majority of the same car style a lot of the time that Dale Earnhardt had. And, I think that he's still cast in that shadow by a lot of people. I think Daniel Hemric now has an opportunity, while honoring a guy from his hometown that's an absolute legend in the sport. He has a chance to make his own kind of name here. But yeah, I think Hemric's a dark horse for the chase very easily. I think that, I think RCR is going to put 2 cars in the chase next year.
I think RCR, Austin Dillon every year is slowly getting better. I think, Austin Dillon, everybody makes the silver suits jokes, but he won a champion. He's a good driver. Like, he earns that.
You look at his resume. I mean, he's got the championships in the lower levels.
You remove his name from that resume and you do the blind resume test, and he looks good 10 times out of 10 next to other drivers.
Right. I mean, he's got the Daytona 500. He's got the Coke 600. Was the Coke 600 a fluke? Maybe. It was a gas mileage race. I mean, but still, you've got that title because you made that decision. It's all a strategy.
Yeah.
And then the Daytona 500, he survived and was there at the end. And
he made the right move.
And
he moved Eric, but what are you going to do? Not move somebody in the Daytona 500?
So I think Dillon's poised for a breakout season, and I think Daniel Hemric's, I think he's going to be a playoff driver this year. I think that consistency, I don't think he'll get a win, but I think he'll be one of those drivers to make it in, simply because, we've seen his ability to run top 10 every single week.
Reminds me of Alex Bowman in the sense of will not be a strong contender, but it'll get in and it'll surprise some people.
Yeah, and then the other big story to me was Steve Phelps talking today in an interview, I believe, with ESPN, about NASCAR's transitioning sponsorship model, how he wants to make it easier and less expensive for people to reach out and put their brand across the sport, which is really good. I like it. He basically said, listen, we've got, races and tracks that get their sponsorship. We got the sport that gets its sponsorship. We got the teams that get their sponsorship. and that's 3 different little settings of things. And, he's trying to tie them all together in a newer business model. So I'm excited for that. And, I think that, this could be the start of, changing things for the better for the sport.
Yeah, I think it's about time we move to the Cup Series presented by, and not the brand Cup Series. I think it's smart. You get to the point where you get $20 million from Monster, but it limits your ability to get, why would you take $20 million from one company when you could get $10 million from 3 or 4 companies for a smaller bit? And be able to put more brand activation. This is what companies want nowadays. They want to be able to activate their brand. So I think putting it in and doing this is perfect. I think this is a wonderful idea, and I cannot wait to see it. I cannot wait to see the sport transition to this as a whole. And I think it'll make everybody happier in the long run, because instead of having one team come in and, you see a lot with Monster in the sense that they do some good things, but, the Hendrick cars don't even run the contingency because they're PepsiCo sponsored. So bring it in, have some official sports sponsors. I love the idea of it.
Yeah, it's, it's all a process. You got to start small, and then things will eventually pan out as they go. And I think this is Steve Phelps saying, all right, it's time to make this move. We make this one move right here that, on paper is going to look kind of small, but it'll have the effect of, it can trickle down and make things better in the long run.
Well, you can do what Formula One does too, right? You don't think of Formula One. Who name me, without Googling it, who presents the Formula One? Who's the main sponsor for that series?
Couldn't tell you.
Exactly. Who's the main sponsor for IndyCar now?
It's Verizon, isn't it?
Verizon is leaving. So it's like, you don't think of Verizon IndyCar, right? And Cup has always been behind this, where you've always thought of, I can't say the first one because it's not appropriate for public access television, but, Sprint Cup Series, Nextel, you always think of that. But now, present it as the NASCAR main Cup Series. Get that drilled into people's heads so you can then have your presenting sponsors. And then you can do stuff like track branding too, You look at what they did at the Roval. The Roval, I think, was a test maybe for what they're trying to do. They had the Tom's Heartburn turn. They have all that stuff. And I think that's pretty cool to see. I like the idea of doing that.
Yeah, me too. I'm all for anything at this point that can, get things better from a money side of things, because, we've talked about it before. Right now, to sponsor a NASCAR costs more than it ever has, and I think that sponsorship is worth less than it ever has as well, which is not a good combination.
It's a brand-to-brand type of world now. It's a people making deals at the track thing. It's no longer are you going out and buying a Caterpillar tonight? Are you going out and buying, I don't think either of us, but if I own a business, that's a brand-to-brand thing. Are you and I going out and using Jacob Companies Construction, as you see on the logo? No, but it's a brand-to-brand type of thing. So by making it easier to do this type of stuff, it'll help the sport's long-term health.
Yeah, that's for sure. So talking about long-term health, Starcom Racing locked up some long-term health today, buying the charter, the number 27 team charter from RCR for the 2019 season. Landon Castle's going to return there. Starcom, pretty much a backmarker team last year, but it was their first full season. What kind of jump are you expecting from them now that they have this full-time driver in a seat where that was kind of, tossed around, especially in the beginning part of the season, and now has that money?
Finally love what they've done with this, because I remember when they came out 2 years ago with a couple of races and all right, it's going to be funny. They're going to make the track and run last. Ha, ha, ha. Yeah. Then they came out with Jeffrey Earnhardt last year, and they're like, we actually got sponsorship. We're going to try to run the entire season. Then Earnhardt racked 6 cars in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
He just put cars into the wall. And then, they're like, let's bring in Landon Castle and let's slowly grow. And they had that run at Bristol last year. That was pretty good. This is a team that is trying. This is a team that is trying to build up. And they have the level 3 ECR Engine Alliance, and now they're going to level 1 there. So they'll have technical support like even RPM does. And it'll be good for them. Landon Castle isn't going to win you many races, but Landon Castle gets you some top 20s sometimes. And he had a top 20 at Vegas, and this is a team that has gone from slowly building, they're building it the right way. So now you'll have the 00 as the car that is your chartered car. It's in every race. Landon Castle shows up. Then you can run the 99 car as your paid driver program, right? Kyle Weatherman had a couple of good starts. I like him. He's a decent young driver. use these guys and build up and continue to build up and keep finding sponsorship. And now that the charter money is going to be huge for these guys, because now they can rely on this and then put more resources in to the car. One of my, I was at Pocono, and Star Arms Jackman, some dude, like some black dude, some really nice guy, like he's showing 10 people how to use the jack. Like, this is pre-race. There's maybe, 20 people from teams all around pit road, most of them staying to themselves, because you can get like right next to the pit boxes at Pocono. And you got this Jackman, biggest smile on his face. He's showing people how they use the jack. He's explaining how the pit stop works. And it's like, that was the moment when I really started rooting for Starcom, because it's like, these guys are trying to grow the sport. I love it.
Yeah, I'm excited for it too. And you look at the guy who's running this whole thing, and it's Derek Cope, Daytona 500 champion. He's been around the sport for years and years and years. I mean, he knows how this business is done. I think for a successful startup team to work, I think you got to have that guy who knows how it's done, like Derek Cope does. He's been on a small team his entire life. He won the Daytona 500 on a back marker team as an upset. And so, that was 1990. He's still racing. He still ran races last season. So Derek Cope knows everything there is to know about running for a small team, and now he's taking that knowledge, and I think he's doing a great job with them.
Derek Cope knows exactly how to build a race team from the ground up, and the guys behind him are willing to put the money into it. So it's good to see. They're going to get better this year. They've done better.
I agree with you. Casey Kane, we did get to this last week, but Casey Kane not mentioned during the awards banquet. And this is a discussion I'm really excited to have with you, because, we saw Tony Stewart, we saw Jeff Gordon, Dale Jr., all those guys get, Carl Edwards hadn't retired by the time of the awards banquet, but all these guys, got honored at this awards banquet. And, a lot of drivers came on Twitter to kind of support Kane, who I believe had 21 wins in his Cup Series career.
It makes me so mad.
So, go for it.
Can I just go for it? I'm going to go for it. It makes me so mad that a guy who was really instrumental in one of those smaller NASCAR. He had a big name in NASCAR for the longest time. He was in all the ads. This was a guy who, Casey Kane, he's the hot one. And it's just like, they put him in these ads. They were making him a minor face of the sport, and he performed well. He drove his way into a Hendrick Motorsports ride. And the fact that you don't honor this dude on his way out the door, give me a 5-minute video of his career. This guy's raced dirt. This guy has won in Nationwide, Xfinity. He's won in Cup. He didn't win a championship, but he was a really good, consistent driver for the longest time. And maybe I'm biased because Casey Kane was my favorite driver when I first got into the sport. But it's complete BS. It's not right that they didn't have 5 minutes. You don't have 5 minutes in the whole NASCAR banquet to say, here's a quick video of Casey Kane. Like, this is Casey Kane. Thanks for trying. Like, what do you
think that he had 18 wins, by the way, so I was mistaken. But do you think that, him being forced to leave due to injury due to, health issues after the Darlington race played into that?
It may have, but NASCAR should have had plenty of time to get their stuff together and been like, you know what? We're going to honor this dude, right? They could have invited him to Homestead, be like, hey, Casey, come to Homestead, give the command, or do something, be like, hey, thanks for, And it just makes me mad. It makes me mad that this guy, his whole career has never been the most popular driver, but he was in the ads, he was a good racer, he was on some bad teams, and he did pretty well. He had a chance to win a championship that Red Bull year, and nothing from NASCAR. And it's the worst. It makes me, it makes my blood boil.
Yeah, and, one of the big things about Casey Kane's career is you go back those first 3 years there. He won 7 races, 6 in 2006. He was winning 6 races his third year. It looked like at that point Casey Kane was going to be, the next guy in NASCAR, right up there with Dale Jr. But then that never really panned out. He never won more than 2 races again in a season. Do you think that was because of the team going down, or do because he did race for a lot of teams that just, were terribly managed.
I think Casey really caught some bad luck because he caught the recession, and Everyham Motorsports was doing okay, and then they went downhill. Then there was that weird merger with Richard Petty and Gillette, and then he had Red Bull for that year.
Yeah.
And I think the worst thing for Casey Kane was signing with Hendrick Motorsports. I think Casey Kane was one of those guys who always outdrove slower equipment.
Yeah.
And I think, I wish he would have stayed with Red Bull Racing for a couple of years. I really do. But the guy raced, what was it, 529 Cup, 215 Xfinity. So we're talking over 700 races in your top 2 series. Like, you give him a video. Like, this is somebody who, has won 18 races in the Cup, 8 races in the lower level.
Yeah. Is he a Hall of Famer?
Oh, yeah.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so. I think...
See, I don't see it. You've been in these debates before. You've been generally more towards let's get these guys into the Hall of Fame. I think it should be a lot stricter. I think unless you're Mark Martin, I think a championship should be a prerequisite, and I think you should have at least 20 wins, especially in 15 years. No,
I think Casey Kane's a Hall of Famer because he's got 18. Let me do the math here quickly. Great TV here, folks. Let me do the math
Dustin
here.
on his calculator.
Dustin on his calculator. We know you love this, fans. We know, he has 5 wins in the trucks too. So he's got 31 wins over all 3 series. He's got 87 top 10s in Xfinity. He's got 76 top 10s in Cup. He's got 27 poles. He's got 9 poles in Xfinity. So, I think the resume is there, but I think guys like Casey Kane, I think that's where your line is. I don't think you let people who've done less in, right? I think Casey Kane, for what he has done overall in all 3 tiers of the sport, he's ran well enough where that's a good enough resume to let you in the Hall of Fame. You look at the Baseball Hall of Fame, and every year they have the 3 or 4 guys that highlight the class. Then you get the littler guys who, you commit a lot of your life to the sport. I'll put Kane in before I put Elliott Sadler in any day of the week. And I'm willing to put Sadler in as a C-list Hall of Famer. But, I think he's earned it. I think he's done well enough. He's won some crown jewels, too,
Yeah, he won a lot of Coke 600s, so.
And,
Brickyard
he won a Rookie of the Year. Yep. And then looking outside of NASCAR, he's won the USAC National Championships a couple of times,
Yeah, I think, as a racer, Casey Kane's a Hall of Famer. I don't think he's a NASCAR Hall of Famer because, the Cup Series, I think, if he did better with Hendrick, I understand that he wasn't given the best opportunity at Hendrick, not the same opportunity that Johnston or Gordon or Dale Jr. had. But I think that, he had all those years with Hendrick to do stuff. 7 years, and he won, 6 races with him? I mean, it's just...
I think that was I think...
It was a bad move, but... I think that you've got to do something there.
On the downspoint, right. I really do. I've never really had faith in them besides Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson has made Hendrick Motorsports look a lot better than Hendrick has been.
Yeah.
Jimmy Johnson has carried that team like LeBron carries a Cavs team. But I think two crown jewels, a rookie a rookie.
He did win a lot of poles in his career.
Won a good amount of poles. I think he gets the NASCAR Hall of Fame. I think he earned that. And I think you think of what if with Casey. What if?
Right. Yeah. Casey's just when I see him, he's the biggest what if NASCAR driver of this generation.
What if Everyham Motorsports doesn't go down the drain?
Right.
Like how much better does he do? Because he wasn't going to leave Everyham, and then they went down the drain, and then he had to take that 5 ride when that 5 ride was not really a fast car anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's an interesting debate. We'll find out over time.
Yeah, I think I'll give it 5-6 years. He'll get in. It'll be one of the quieter ones where it's like, oh, hey, Casey's going to make it. Cool.
Yeah. Another piece of news that we haven't been able to get to the last couple of weeks, Denny Hamlin getting a new crew chief for 2019. Of course, we saw his last crew chief go to the 95 team with Matt DiBenedetto for next year. I think that was a good move because Denny just had a terrible season. And, now he's got Chris Gabehart in here. And it's, for me, this is a make or break season for Denny because, last year for him, it was a down year for Joe Gibbs as a whole. But, man, Denny's starting to get to the range where, and Joe Gibbs is starting to build up the driver pool to where it's getting to the point where Denny Hamlin is, questionably only there because FedEx is there.
This is the Denny Hamlin conundrum is really interesting to me because he has a full season of sponsorship. He's one of the last drivers to have an absolute full season of sponsorship. And you look at Joe Gibbs and
Hamlin and Jimmy Johnson are the only people.
You really can't kick Denny Hamlin out unless FedEx leaves.
Right.
Like if FedEx decides to leave, he's gone. But you look at Denny Hamlin, but he hasn't done it. He didn't win last year. He's definitely, he's 38.
First time in his entire career that he's gone a season.
He's on the backside of his career. You have Christopher Bell nipping at his heels, and it's like, but you can't replace him yet. Because you can't, M&M's is almost a full season, and then Gibbs is losing Eris because Suarez is leaving. So, you can't take that big of a hit because Jones still isn't fully sponsored. So you can't have
neither is Truex either.
You can't have Christopher Bell come up and take that seat when that's one of your best stable rides. I think Hamlin rebounds and gets a couple wins next year, especially with the new package. But it's interesting to see what Joe Gibbs is going to do because around this time next year, there's going to be something that has happened with Hamlin, right?
Yeah.
He's either going to retire or he's going to stay. He's going to retire, stay with Gibbs, or he'll find a new ride. But I bet, Joe Gibbs will do everything they can to keep FedEx around and get FedEx to be on Christopher Bell. But FedEx has been really close with Hamlin, so it'll be really interesting to me to see how that works.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you. I think that Hamlin is just the underperformance this year. They had to make the change, and I think the crew chief, that's like a football team getting a new coach. It can be a breath of fresh air for a driver, but if Denny Hamlin goes out and puts up another goose egg in 2019, and gets with an average finish of 13 again, and runs top 10 every week, but can't put the car in victory lane, then I think that's another discussion. But I think this is Hamlin's opportunity to really, get going and make himself put himself in that Hall of Fame discussion.
And that's what's so interesting because if Hamlin doesn't put the car in victory lane, but FedEx is like, we still want him for another year. What do you do? Like, what do you take the sponsorship money and let that go into your full program? So you can help your other cars be faster and then find a place to be a satellite. Somebody is going to Joe Gibbs is going to have to find another satellite team here sooner than later.
Right. I honestly think that, personally, I think Bell's, destined for somewhere else. I'm partly cheering for that, but I really do believe that Bell is destined to go elsewhere.
I think Bell might displace Eric Jones. The hottest take.
Wow.
Is that Eric Jones
a very hot take.
Gets booted for Bell. That's the dumbest, hottest take I've had, but I just get this feeling that because Eric Jones, he just hasn't lived up to the hype at the Cup level.
He made the he made the playoffs.
But he made the playoffs on a lucky win, but
he would have made it on points too.
He's only 22 years old, but Joe Gibbs is running out of space. He's running out of space.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's not like he'll get rid of Busch or Truex.
You look at the musical chairs. The driver that is left out would be Denny Hamlin. The driver with the best sponsorship package on the entire team is Denny Hamlin. So what do you do?
Yeah, I think Joe Gibbs gets into this situation. I think Hamlin would have to be the odd man out because at the end of the day, I think that finding sponsorship for Bell, I don't think would be too terribly difficult.
I don't think it would be too terribly difficult, but you can't tell me that you're going to kick. You can't tell me you're going to kick him out. You can't tell me you're going to kick a guy who brings $20 million to the table out of his seat.
Right, that would be a difficult decision for sure. That's all we have for today's show. We didn't get to driver report cards again. Maybe next week,
Next week's Christmas Eve, so we will not be here.
Oh, yeah, we won't even
Happy
be here.
holidays. We'll be back at you in a couple of weeks here. We have a couple of weeks off.
Weeks off here, yeah. And then
Nick can get some sleep.
I can get some sleep on Monday nights. We'll miss you guys, though. I'll probably put out some podcasts here over the next couple of weeks to keep you guys informed.
The last show until next year.
Thanks for tuning in on Facebook Live, Northwest Access TV. I'm Nick. He's Dustin. See you in 2019.
Woohoo.